Good afternoon, and welcome to Everybody's Talking, an exclusive public affairs presentation of WCBO. Here is your host for today's show.
Good afternoon, this is Dr. Lightheart. Do you realize that there is a major debate going on in our state house and in the State Board of Education that will affect Ohioans and far beyond for the next generation? There's a debate as to what to teach about origins. Has this universe always existed, or was it created, and was it billions of years ago or thousands of years ago? Was Darwin right? Did he have the answers to the origins for all species? We have read, heard, seen so many conflicting ideas over the past several months about all of this, much of it being quite uninformed. This afternoon we have a special guest, Frank Vosler, who has been studying creationism and intelligent design for many years and is quite an authority on the subject. So, Frank, we are most happy to have you to straighten us out on the schools and evolution.
Well, thank you, Paul, and I appreciate the opportunity to come here. This, I think, one of the most important subjects that are facing everybody in the United States and Western civilization right now, and Christians especially should be very conscious of it and concerned about it. You mentioned the Führer. There are several bills that there's 481 and 484, both of them put in by Linda Reiterbach, and everybody who lives in her district vote for sure. She's a good lady. The other one is over in the Senate, Senate Bill 222, and I've forgotten the name of, I think it's Johnson that introduced that one. But the purpose of these bills is to see to it that the both sides of the evolution controversy are presented, made available to our students. Heretofore, except with rare exceptions, only one side, the evidence for evolution, has been presented. Now, in consequence of Senate Bill 1, they are coming up with science standards. They're writing a few standards, a few subjects each year, and this year they're writing standards for science, and they'll be taught to those standards, and they attested to those standards, and the standards as they stand right now make evolution a fact, and do not allow any opposition to it or any contrary views or evidence. So it's a strange situation we're in. They call evolution a science simply because it's materialistic, or we would say atheistic. That fits their definition of science, because science just deals with the natural realm. And if they figure that there isn't any other realm, well, then of course science, scientific truth equates with all truth. And everything else, all religious truth is they call myth or superstition. So this is the way the students are going to be taught, unless there's some political pressure brought to change this. And the ones who can bring this political pressure would be either the State Board of Education or the House and Senate, the General Assembly of the state of Ohio. So you want to write the board members, and you want to write or call the members of the education committees of the House and Senate down here in Columbus. And you can call somebody down there, like a clerk, whatever, and ask who to call or where to call, and you'll be steered around and finally end up getting the list of names. That's the way I did it. And you can be directed over to the State Board of Education. It's in the blue pages also, but somebody there will send you the names of the board members and their phone numbers and email addresses and so on. So you need to contact them and say that it's important to you that your children and your neighbor's children be privileged to hear the evidence against evolution. Well, they say that if a theory can't be falsified, and that's a famous saying now, it can't be falsified, it's not science. What do you do about a theory that they won't permit to be falsified? You get the courts to outlaw falsifying it, and they still want to call evolution a science. Well, anyway, they base their arguments in the newspapers and elsewhere on two basic lies. One is that creation science is the story of Genesis, and the other is that creationists are not scientists and are not competent. Now, that's the story of Genesis. A lot of us believe that. Those that believe the Bible, Christians and Jews, should believe the book of Genesis. However, that is not creation science. When we speak of that, we don't use the word science. That would be creationism or biblical creationism or Christian evidences or Christian apologetics. But when we get to creation science, we're talking about the scientific evidence against evolution. And there is a pile of it. We'll get into some of that later. I trust we'll have time for that. Evolution is a philosophical corollary of atheism. Now, design in nature is so obvious that it must be explained by both theists and atheists. It's easy for theists to explain it, but it's difficult for the atheists. Because if there's no God, and then the universe must have lifted itself up by its own bootstraps. And living organisms had to lift themselves up by their own bootstraps. So I call it a bootstrap theory. And it flies right in the face of a well-established second law of thermodynamics, sometimes called the law of decay. Everything runs downhill. And everybody, that's what we observe. Look at nature and see what you see. Do you see things going uphill? Do you see things going downhill? Do you see things evolving upward? Or do you see things rusting and wearing out? Well, we see things rusting and wearing out and getting old everywhere, and we have to have an input to maintain them. Nobody has ever seen evolution in action. And the evolutionists say, well, that's because it's so slow you can't see it. But it's missing from the fossil record too, because we can classify the fossil flora and fauna in the same categories and classifications that we use on the living flora and fauna. So the same gaps are there. Now, if they all started with one organism, you'd think they would have crossed those gaps at some point, maybe leave a fossil halfway between. We do have two or three what they call mosaics, which are hard to classify because they have some features that are different. There's the Archaeopteryx bird, which they're sure is a missing link. And there's the platypus, and nobody knows what it's a missing link between because it has features about 3 or 4 different categories. But there's a handful of strange critters there that God made as a joke. And but that's not enough to fill the gaps. If evolution were true, we wouldn't be able to classify much of anything. There'd be so many things in between on the way from something to something else. So we do not have evidence for evolution in the fossils. Rather, if it's evidence for anything at all, it's evidence things were made as they are sometime in the beginning. Darwinism refers to his contribution to the preservation of slight chance improvements by competition for life and reproduction. Well, if you make a little improvement in something, it manages, if it can run faster or fly higher or something, it escapes its predators and lives longer and leaves more offspring, and pretty soon those genes will grow in the gene pool, and there will be a permanent change in that species. And if that happens over and over again, who knows where it might go. This is the view of the evolutionists. There's one little misstep in there, and that is that they don't know how to find an improvement, not by accident. I mean, we've had millions of accidents with cars, but nobody's ever heard of one being improved by an accident. And they're relying on accidents to, they call mutations to genes. If you have an accident to a gene, you'll be very fortunate if it's not lethal. None of them are really known to be improvements. And you say, well, wait a minute, what about the peppered moth? Well, we've got two styles of peppered moth, two colors. And in every gene pool, there are variations, otherwise we'd all look alike. There are differences in color of our hair and so on. And in the case of this peppered moth, there's difference in color of the wings. Now, which one came first? Is one a mutation from the other, or were they both created together in the original gene pool? Well, if God created them, he probably put in a bundle of we call them alleles, little variants in the genes. He probably put a bundle in the original gene pool, and they can all help themselves to it. But the peppered moths, all we're seeing there is population change. We have X number of dark moths and Y number of light moths, and then when the environment changes, the dark moths maybe don't do so well, and the white moths do better, and they grow in population, so we have population changes. But population changes are not, it's not evolution. Evolution requires an upward grading, an upward bound, a new tissue coming on stream, a new organ, a new structure appearing for the first time. After all, as I look at myself, I have lots of features, hands and feet and eyes and brain and all kinds of organs inside. None of those things were in the alleged original microbe or cell or whatever it was. They've all come on stream since then. When and how? They represent an awful lot of information, and that information just doesn't drop out of nowhere. One of the laws, they've been studying information a lot recently, and one of the laws is that in a closed system, which is another way of saying other things being equal, since there's no such thing as a truly closed system, but in a closed system, there can be no increase in information. That's parallel to the to the first law of thermodynamics, that in a closed system there can be no increase in energy. You can't create or destroy energy. In the natural, you can't create information. As far as we know, there's only one source for information, and that's out of brains. And that's something that's not well understood by science. But William Paley wrote a book published in 1802, Natural Theology, and he starts out the book by imagining he's walking across the heath or moor of Scotland, I suppose, or wherever in England, and he kicks his foot against a stone. He picks it up and asks, "Who made the stone?" And the answer is perhaps nobody. As far as we know, it was always there, forever. And then he walks a little further and kicks his foot against a watch, and he picks up the watch and looks at it closely. And he asks, "Who made the watch?" And there is, well, somebody must have made it. We may not know who, but we know it was made. So he goes into a discussion as to the difference between the watch and the stone. Why the watch has a type of design that could not have been made by nature. And this is still being argued. The intelligent design people have adopted the term complex, complexity, irreducible complexity, I'm sorry. And to go on with Paley just a step further, he used a term for his purposefulness. He looks at the design of the watch and says, things are made there for a purpose, the wheels, the cogs, and so on. So that purposefulness cues him that the watch was made by a person. And for the intelligent design group, this irreducible complexity cues them that it was done by a mind and not by blind nature and not by raw chance. And Dr. Mayhew wrote Darwin's Black Box. He illustrated this in several ways. He told about the electric motor that in the back of the bacterium that rotates the cilia that drives it forward. Makes a spinning helix out of it. And that shows the parts of the motor and how it's made up. And it's quite an engineering feat. And it's a kind of a thing, if you eliminated any part there, there may be more, whatever, they've got a ring of little things that ionize or something and drive the motor around. You could leave out one or two of them and reduce the numbers, but you can't reduce a thing by kind. You can't reduce them all of that item or all of another item, or there are some items there that are essential, several items. You can't take out any one of them and have the thing work. And he gives the illustration of a mousetrap. I think he counted 7 parts. If you leave out any one of the parts, the mousetrap won't work. So you get down to the place where you can show that there are a certain number of things that you have to have. Now, Darwin said that you could go by little steps. You could just get one tiny change, and if it proved to be an improvement, then it would go on, it would keep it. One improvement, it'd lose it. And then you get another little tiny, finally get another little improvement, and it would keep that because that would improve its chances for survival. But you can't do an essential series of 20 or 50 or 100 improvements like that before you get something else that's able to survive, because none of those improvements will survive until they're all there and in place and functioning. So, and these things that function are complex. I would like to illustrate that in another way. And you've heard the evolutionists talk about crystals. A little crystal, like a nice, let's say a snowflake. We have the H2O, the water molecule, and it forms the atoms, the nuclei, and get together in a certain fashion because of the electrical design of each atom. So they always fit together the same way. They like it that way. And that gives them a certain potential. So now when the temperature changes, drops below 32, they want to form into a crystal. And that information for the crystal is there, inherent in that water molecule. And then the crystal is symmetrical along 3 axes, like a 6-pointed snowflake. You'll never find a 4-pointed snowflake, or 8 or 10 or any other number, just 6. Why? Because the information for that 6-pointed snowflake is already in the water molecule. It does not represent any new information. There has not been an increase in information in that case. But if you see a snowman out in the front yard with black coal eyes and something for a mouth and a pipe and a muffler around his neck and so on, and you can see where the kids are rolling the snow down the hill, you know that that information was not in the water molecule. So you know there was a mind that went beyond the water molecule and added more information to it and made a little statue. So these are some of the arguments for creationism. We have this new intelligent design movement. It's about 10 years old now, and it's headed or coached, we want to call it that, by a Berkeley lawyer, law professor, named Philip Johnson. He's written some wonderful books. Well, you might think that a law professor would not be able to write on evolution, but he sure can. He knows his stuff. But these others that have, some of them are original and some of them have come on more lately. But there's a group of them now that are making waves, and they're pushing this intelligent design. And they've come into the Columbus area here, and they're pushing for the new law. First of all, they're pushing on the curriculum writing group and asking them to put in something about the controversy and the arguments to show that there is evidence against evolution, and to show that there are scientists who believe that, who do not believe in evolution. It's being called in the newspapers intelligent design, or ID. You see the letters ID. And they are just talking about evolution. They're not talking about the age of anything at all. Some of them are old age creationists, as a matter of fact. But the subject of evolution can certainly be divided from the subject of geochronology, or geo-age of the Earth and of the universe, cosmos. The argument against evolution is very one-sided in our favor. They don't have a leg to stand on, and that's why we always beat them in debates, and why they don't debate us anymore. I remember 30 years ago, I used to attend the debates, and the local evolutionist, supposedly a professor of science in a local school, college, university, would try to pretend he was a theologian and show them that they could believe in the Bible, believe in Christianity, and be an evolutionist, as they would put it, and believe in science at the same time. They never presented scientific arguments. I guess they didn't know the scientific arguments. They caught on after a while. It took them 2 or 3 years to. Then they came to debates. They started to present more scientific arguments.
There's in the papers, I see an item periodically that the debates are usually won by evolutionists, and this is false. I know of one man, Dr. Gish, who has had 300 debates, and he has won every one of them. The evolutionists uniformly lose the debates because the evidence is not there.
Yeah. Of course, they don't have any official referees, but the public, those who attend them and listen to them, they usually pass out slips of paper and have them fill in their reactions. And that's on the basis of which we say that we have won the debates. We had almost a school revival down at the University of Cincinnati about 30 years ago. I think they counted 88 students who gave their hearts to the Lord as a result of a debate between the creationists and evolutionists. So that's why they don't like the debates.
There seems to be so much information in the papers that is patently untrue, and so many of the evolutionary comments are exactly the same. I think they got together and decided on what to say, and they have not allowed for honest debate.
Yes, they do get together. They have what they call committees of correspondence, and they have an organization that Eugene Scott is the head of, and which is dedicated to that. And they put out their newsletters and so on, and keep their own group informed as to what's going on and how to argue cases. And so they have already pelted the Board of Education and the legislators with their views, and then they're filling the newspaper space. And of course, newspapers the dispatch is very accommodating to them. So you've seen a number of them. And it's always the same arguments that creationism is not science and evolution is.
We're running out of time, and Frank, I believe you had an idea about how some folks could learn more about it. They can contact you for.
Oh, yes, I have. I have here a little booklet. Because I'd send them from my home if you can get in touch with me. And I'll give you my phone number. If you don't get written down, I think that the station here might relay it to you. The name of the booklet is Scientific Case Against Evolution by Henry Morris, and it's 28 pages, but anybody who's read Henry Morris knows that he writes very well. And if you don't have much information on creation science, this would be an excellent start. And the booklets are small, they didn't cost me much, I'd be glad to give you one. No shipping and handling. Now my phone number is 855-1797. 855-1797. And my address is 8011 Morse Road, New Albany, Ohio, 43054. That's 8011 Morse Road, New Albany, Ohio. So I'll be glad to give you one of these. I've ordered 100 of them, and I'll order more if I have to.
Well, Henry Morris, as you well know, is a brilliant scientist. He's been writing for many years. He's probably the best known creationist in the world, and I've never read anything he has written of his 50 books or so that wasn't accurate. Frank, we're out of time. We want to thank you for a wonderful half hour. And do you have any parting final words?
Yes, about 2 books full. Well, learn about this. If you haven't learned about it, learn about it, because it's important. It's really, in my opinion, it's the cause of the apostasy and the culture change in our nation. And we don't get it turned around, we're going to lose our nation. So I say that's pretty important.
Certainly is. God bless you all. Good afternoon.
Everybody's Talking is a daily public affairs program of WCBO. The views and opinions expressed were not necessarily those of the staff, management, or ownership of WCBO. You can obtain a cassette copy of today's show by sending $5 to WCBO, P.O. Box 7, New Albany, Ohio, 43054. Be sure to include today's date and the words "Everybody's Talking" in your letter. Thanks for listening.